I love a phase 2 of a build because you've had so much time. You've done a first trip. You have insight into the vehicle's behavior. You're excited about the things that you've done with the vehicle, more excited about the things that you're about to do with the vehicle. Perhaps you've had a break of a period of time where you've saved a bit of money, and you talked about all these things with your mates around the campfire, and now you're going to start doing it. So it's now the turn of my 2.8 troop carrier. I have been I've just come back from Africa, and the ride on this thing is absolutely brilliant, and due largely to the Superior Engineering 2.5 inch diameter remote res shocks, which I can also adjust in the cab, but it's transformed the car. But I was made an offer. Would you like to take it to the next level? And I'm kind of a little bit hesitant when suppliers, or in this case, they donated the shock absorbers. I'm not paid for this review, but they did donate the shock absorbers to me. I'm a little reluctant, but also I'm a little curious. Now, in this case, I am fitting more of the Superior Engineering products to the suspension as an educational, so I can explain to you why I would choose such a thing. I'll obviously be driving it and reviewing them, but also because on Heine's 76 series, he's got the same things fitted and he raves about it. Oh, look at that.
It's all full underneath there.
You're the leading vehicle, so you're taking...
Absolutely.
Those three things combined mean that I'm now, together with all of the other mods and improvements I'm going to make to this vehicle, I'm going to go one step further with the suspension. It is a revolution in DC power distribution. Before we get on to the main part of the video, I wanted to thank Tony Smith for an excellent comment. Tony is one of my Patreons, and he said to me, what about, I'm talking now about last week's episode, the AC compressor? What about redundancy? Now, we all have this issue. Most of us carry one compressor. If we are traveling alone and it fails, we've got a major problem. In fact, in Africa, I was questioning the reliability of the compressor fitted in that vehicle. I purchased a cheapest chips compressor and just bunged it in the vehicle. And I'm doing exactly the same with this one, because I've actually made it more complicated, because I now have to rely on an inverter and a compressor for the tire inflation system to work. I've made things more complicated, therefore I need to carry, if I'm solo, something else, a backup somewhere in the vehicle. It was a very good point, and I thank you, Tony, for bringing that up. Right, on to the main subject. When I told Heine I was doing this modification, he said to me, oh man, you'll feel it instantly. And the truth is, I didn't. I did, but I didn't go, oh, holy crap, like I did with the suspension. For the first time, I am trying a 2.5-inch diameter shock absorber, this one made by Superior Engineering in Australia. Electric in-cab adjustable monotube with reservoir shock absorbers for my lift kit, based on Terrain Tamer smart coils on the front and parabolic spring sets at the back. Wow, that is amazing. I didn't do that. He fitted his to a vehicle that had 250 plus 1,000 kilometers on it and was still running the original springs, etc., bushes, etc., from new. They were worn out. Of course he's going to feel a massive difference. The best way I think I can express it, do you know what it's like to have a throttle controller in your car? So I had a throttle controller in my V8 and actually had to dial it back because it made the throttle so responsive that it was actually difficult now to drive the car smoothly. It would kind of pull, you know, and so luckily with that system that I had put in that car, I could dial it back, and I only had it a little bit more sensitive than standard. But what it did is it made the vehicle feel more alive. It just was reacting faster to my inputs. This is the same. The steering is reacting faster to my inputs. So when I go into a corner, the car feels like it responds faster. Now, the way they've done this is that they've stiffened up the components in the suspension. In other words, there's a thing called a drag link. It is a bar between the steering bar and the actual wheels themselves. So as you move the wheels, that bar will bend a little bit, not a lot, but it will bend because it's a straight, long shaft, and you're pushing pressure on the one end and it's reacting, there's a resistance on the other end. So it's going to bend. How much is it going to bend? Less. It's now bending less. And because it's bending less, the reaction of the wheel is faster. It's a fraction of a millisecond. But you do feel it. The other part, this has bushes. Now, all suspension systems have bushes. Now, you'll know that if you've had a suspension upgrade where they've lifted it, typically this is that much. That's the lift I've got in this vehicle. Troopies don't need more. They've got bags of clearance. Plenty. And solid axles, plenty of clearance. Clearance they're not short of. So giving them a little bit of extra load carrying ability, a little bit of extra clearance is good. I think too much is at the detriment of handling. It might look cool to have 3-4 inches, but there is a price to pay for that. I think 2 inches is just right for both off-road and overlanding. It's a great combination of both. In a typical 2-inch lift and higher, your suspension fitment center will offer you caster correction bushes. And what that is okay, I'm sitting in my car now, and the front wheels are sitting like this, and they're rotating, and as I turn the steering wheel, they do this, yes? The way the wheel is sitting, that angle to the road is called camber. That angle to the road is called caster. Now, if you lift up the suspension, yeah, you're changing the caster angle. That's what Toyota designed it. Toyota designed it like that. So when the steering rotates on its axis to turn the vehicle, that angle is correct. That's what they decided the angle should be, and that's the angle it should be. Now we lift the suspension, okay, it goes up. So the caster angle changes. So what caster correction bushes do, and they do it in a kind of an artificial way, they kind of do this a bit. So while the vehicle goes up, the caster bushes, which are bushes with off-center, they're off-center, it kind of turns it down a bit more. Okay, so in other words, it puts the caster angle back to where, or closer to where it's supposed to be, using bushes. So we've now corrected the caster angle. The caster angle is now correct, yes? It's not quite right. It's close. It's much closer. It's close enough for the caster correction not to affect the steering stability of the car. many of you will know, if you have loaded up a pickup, a ute, with sand and bricks, and it's really sitting down and you're thinking, ooh, this is overloaded. I've only got a couple of k's to go to my folks' house. I'll chance it. I've done it a few times. Short trip, you feel through the steering wheel, you feel it's very squiggly. It's very kind of sensitive. It's horrible to drive. Nasty to drive. That's now what the car's done is the car has gone back up, and so the caster angle has done this. Okay, it's off center, and now the car is as squirrely as all hell. I remember years and years ago, my Landcruiser 76, I got in 2008. They had just been launched. It had the 1HZ engine, but it had the different front end, the wider front end, designed to fit the V8. And even though it didn't have the V8, it still had the wider front end. And the guys at the store, they said they had fitted the caster correction bushes, and they hadn't. And I drove that car all the way down to Cape Town, 1,600 kilometers, and I couldn't do more than 90 k's an hour because it became dangerous to drive. And yes, they fitted them. I didn't understand what was going on, and so when I got to Cape Town, I had the bushes removed. They hadn't changed the bushes, still had the standard bushes in it. So anyway, that happened to me, and that was my first taste of, wow, these caster correction bushes, they're not only necessary, they are really necessary. So I digress a little bit. What the Superior Engineering radius arms do is that the caster correction is actually in the arms. It's been corrected for the lift. So the bushes are now center. So you see around them the rubber is uniform, the center part is in the center. That's because the correction has been done in the actual radius arms themselves. So the radius arms are stiffer. So when your front axle hits something, they will bend a little bit. Not a lot, they'll bend a bit. Again, same thing applies. If you can reduce that bend, flex is probably a better word, if you can reduce the flexibility of the radius arms, the car's going to drive better. It's going to feel better through the steering wheel. They have corrected the caster to the point where even if now I was extremely heavily laden down at the back and I have a suspension lift, I still won't have an adverse feeling through the steering of an incorrect caster angle. It maintains that angle accurately, exactly how Toyota had designed the car to be. Okay, even slightly more, very slightly more so when the vehicle sits down at the back because of a load, that steering is still going to be really, really good. The third component I have fitted is called a Panhard rod. Now, consider a suspension system. Leaf spring, the leaves themselves act as a Panhard rod. What the Panhard rod does is it stops the axle from moving sideways. Okay? So it holds the axle in its location. You have radius arms going to the axle, and then to stop the axle moving sideways, okay, so my radius arms, one here, and I have a Panhard rod which runs from the chassis to the axle, and it bolts tightly on with bushes, and it stops the axle moving sideways. What happens is that when you lift the vehicle, the Panhard rod, which is not changed, the standard Panhard rod is fitted to, is not changed when a lift, even a lift as much as 4 inches, it's not changed. Generally speaking, it's not part of the lift. actually it should be. Now with 2-inch lift, you can get away with it. Because what happens was this. Think about the configuration of me sitting in the car now. I've got these 2 wheels sitting like this, okay? I've got this Panhard rod stopping the axle moving sideways, and I'm going to lift the car. So what happens when I lift the car? I am increasing the distance from the axle to the chassis, yeah? Which, what that'll do is, because if the Panhard rod remains the same length, it will actually move the axle off center. It will move towards where it's bolted onto the chassis. By much? By enough with a 4-inch lift for it to matter. The vehicle then doesn't track perfectly. It's slightly off. The front axle is very slightly off center. It's one of the reasons, there are more reasons, but it's one of the reasons why when doing a suspension upgrade, you must have your wheels, your steering realigned. It's very important. So that's one of the reasons why it's important to have them realigned. You've now got a new height, and the wheels are no longer pointing dead ahead. They're very slightly off because the axle has moved to the side. This Panhard rod upgrade has taken that into consideration and re-centered the axle. So now I'm driving a vehicle which is exactly how Toyota intended it to be, but I've got a 2-inch lift. The end result is it's a little nicer to drive. Would I? Yes, I mentioned before that I am sponsored these items. And when I say sponsored, they don't pay me any money. I asked them because I was curious to learn more about it. And I said, wow, great. Okay, let me try it out for myself. And I can now report back that does it make an earth-shattering difference? No. But I've given you the technical reasons why it's a good idea. Is it worth doing? And if I had to spend the money myself with a 2-inch lift, would I? Now, my financial situation, it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous question because every one of you watching this is in a different financial situation to me. I don't have mild piles of money to throw into these builds. I do rely on product makers to do them as well as I do them. It's true, I do. Would I spend the money? No. I got a 2-inch lift. No. If I had a 4-inch lift, yes. Yes, definitely. If I had more than a 2-inch lift. See, 2 inches, you can get away with it. Happily. I've done it before on my previous Landcruisers. I've got away with it. And I'm happy. But I know that that caster, the more the caster correction that has to be implied, the more important it is to do it the right way and do it sufficiently. But I am enjoying it's a nicer car to drive. It is. Because those of you who know the 70 series will know that it tends to wander a bit. It tends to be a little bit vague. Now, it's not gross. It's not terrible. We're used to it. We don't even think about it. Put this in your vehicle and then tell me if it doesn't wander anymore. It sits straight. Right, so now, I hope you learned something from that. I've learned something from the whole. I understood the theories. I understood the theory. I've understood the theory for decades. First time I've actually hit it in a vehicle of my own. So I understand it a little bit better. So now, what about the 2.8? Do I like the 2.8? The refinement of the 2.8 is really nice. It's nicer to drive than the V8. It's quieter, etc., etc. It does, you have less feel. I've mentioned it before. There's less feel. There's less enjoyment in the car. It's more like a delivery van than the V8. It's more like a stick and rudder type car. You feel more. You've got to work more to drive it. And do I miss that? I guess I do. Well, not really, because I've been driving. I have only done one trip in this vehicle. I'm about to do another one. And off-road, I prefer manual. I prefer it because I'm better at driving a manual than I am an automatic, because I've done more of it. But this auto box is well behaved, but this car has a major flaw that really, really frustrates me. And that is when I pull away in traffic and I need to quickly go, okay, bit of a gap here, let's go. Come on! And then it goes. Not all auto boxes are like that. And I thought for a while this might be turbo lag. And I'm thinking, actually, if I think about the type of turbocharger in this car, it's probably not turbo lag, it's probably the gearbox. So that's my next aim. In the next episode, that's my challenge. Join me then. Remember, if you want to tell YouTube that you're interested in these videos, you got to click that little notifications bell, subscribe and click that bell, and hopefully they will send you a notification when I drop another video. Thank you everybody for watching.